Hey guys, am I supposed to talk now? How's everybody doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, it's time for talking Outlander. We're here to talk about the fifth episode of Outlander, episode 105, season one. It's called Rent, and it's time to talk about it. We have some new faces with us tonight, so we're gonna go real quick and introduce everybody. We're excited about talking about this episode tonight. So first of all, I'll start. I'm Beth. I'm with That's Normal. And you can tweet me at Beth Thorne right there in my little tagline. And my tagline tonight is Piss Perfect. I made the mistake of saying that I thought parts of this episode were a little bit like the Scottish Pitch Perfect. And someone tweeted me back, "You mean Piss Perfect?" And I stole their line because I thought it was funny. Um, so I'm having a very large glass of Pinot Noir. And I can see, look, you guys are in it.
Oh,
And let's keep going. Laura, why don't you go next and then introduce your friend that's with us tonight?
Okay, cool. Hi guys, I'm Laura from Hypable.com, and you can also catch where I am right down below here, where you can catch me on Twitter. And my tagline for tonight is "Not wearing historic dress ever." Just can't do it anymore. Not having seen that, just yeah, not happening. Not going for the real stuff. And I'm tired tonight, so I'm just kind of having a little cup of cocoa in my little sideshow mug here. So nothing alcoholic for me, alas, alack, tonight. And I have a hypable buddy with me tonight. I brought Pam along, and Pam is the person who made me read Outlander after I came back from New York Comic Con, and I was like, what is this Outlander thing? People were screaming loudly like for Twilight. I don't know what's going on. And Pam's the one who told me to read Outlander. So yay, Pam. Pam could introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Pamela, also from Hypable, and I just want to say first of all, I'm so glad Laura ended up liking Outlander. If she would have hated it, I would have just been on like her book recommendation hit list forever, so I'm really glad she ended up enjoying it a lot. I write about all different kinds of stuff on Hypable, so you can catch me there as well as on the occasional podcast if you guys are Hypable podcast listeners. And I didn't realize we were supposed to have a tagline today because I'm a bit of a noob. But I guess if I had to make one up on the fly, I would just say this is clearly just like a building episode. It's all just building to the big crescendo of the book. So I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm excited you're here.
me too, newbies. I'm next. I just realized that I may have had the screen on my face this whole time while I was not paying attention to anybody, so I really apologize. That's going to be blamed on the many glasses of wine I've had thus far tonight because #Monday. I'm Becca. Becca Buttons on Twitter. I am part of That's Normal, and my tagline is it's almost time. And if we're book readers, we know what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to say anything more because I know that we do actually have people watching who are not, haven't read the books, and I think that's awesome. And we did discuss how we're going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. But you guys, you have no idea what's coming, and I'm so excited. So that is my tagline for tonight.
All right, Tiff, it's your turn.
You're muted.
Tiffany, you're muted.
Unmute. Up at the top. There you go.
On me now too.
Is she frozen?
Kind of.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
There you go. You're good.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I figured it
Yay.
out.
Woo!
My tagline is "The rent is too damn high," because the title of the show was Rent. And yeah, I'm drinking a nice little iced chai because it's freaking hot here. So yeah, that's great.
Tiff is one of our writers on That's Normal. So thanks for joining us tonight, Tiff, one of our Boot Club members. We're glad you're here. James.
We're very excited.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie, the City Girl. I'm a contributor over at That's normal. My tagline today is Red Jamie because that alludes to a name that Jamie eventually has in the book. And my name is Jamie, and I'm also quite red today. Luckily, the lighting is kind of washing me out, but I did have some incident with the sun, and I have some major sunburn going on, which is why I'm drinking water because the thought of just being dehydrated at the moment with alcohol makes me want to shrivel up. So there we go.
Yay, Red Jamie. I keep thinking about that watching the episodes because there's been a ton of other dudes with red hair, and it's kind of like a thing that he's the only one with red hair. Otherwise, I wouldn't call him Red Jamie. Maybe it's because he's also supposed to be really tall, but he's supposed to kind of stand out as being really different, and he kind of looks like some of the other dudes that are around.
Who, number one, is as hot as Jamie, besides Frank? And number two, who else has red hair?
I have seen a lot of the Highlanders with red hair. Not ones that have lines, but just in the background.
Oh.
It's been bugging me. No, they're not as hot as Jamie, but they're there.
No.
So we're going to talk real quick. This actual episode is a story arc that only takes place, for a little bit of the book that they had to expand into a kind of a full hour. So obviously they're, trying to make it longer, and they're showing them traveling through Scotland. Claire's bonding with the Highlanders. That's kind of like a big part of the story. We're learning more about the fact that they all, they're becoming more human to her. Their plight is more real to her. Their future, with what's going on with the Jacobite uprisings and all of that is becoming more evident to Claire and what's going on. But are there things you would have changed about how they told the story in this episode? Either what they left out of the book or how they changed things, or just ways that things just maybe didn't quite work for you? Or did you love it?
I had problems with Angus. I was like, did Angus, do we need to sign him up for an anger management program? I just felt like he was very over the top this week. Normally he's kind of mildly frustrated, but he was just like, come on, what are you doing? Like hauling her out of the, I'm like, she's with a bunch of other women and they were putting piss on clothes. Really, realistically speaking, of all the places she could have been, it was pretty innocuous. I just felt like Angus was very, very over the top. I couldn't figure out what was driving that much of an intense level of frustration with Angus.
Maybe Dougal was giving him a hard time. Dougal's his boss or whatever.
Maybe, or they cut a scene or something, but he just seemed so disproportionately angry to me. I was kind of surprised at that.
Yeah. I think that Angus is supposed to be kind of a loose cannon, right? Mm-hmm. I mean.
Yeah, I guess. So maybe that's part of it. It was just I was like, whoa, you're really manhandling her, dude. Yeah. It's not that bad.
Thought he's going to stab her in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we get too far, if you are watching this on YouTube Live, there is a question and answer thing that you should be able to see, I think, that comes right up next to the video. I've never actually experienced it. So please submit questions or comments. You can even, if there's a bunch of them, you can vote up which ones you want us to discuss, and we'll be monitoring that. And then obviously on Twitter, too, if you're using the hashtag Talking Outlander, we'll be watching what you're saying, but I'm seeing some good things come through already. Keep it coming.
Yeah, definitely, Laura. We already have some agreement about Angus going, so people are on the same page. He definitely needs a chill pill.
Well, my thought about what I would have changed this particular episode is more about Jamie and Dougal. That huge blow-up scene when he pulls his shirt off, I think in the book it happens the first time that he pulls his shirt off. And logistically speaking, storyline-wise, it should have happened the first time he ripped his shirt. And she should have overheard that the first time. It shouldn't have been this montage of 10 different taverns, and we see Jamie's back 10 times, and then he gets upset about it. It just seems like that was overkill. It was in the wrong place, because it's such an important scene for Jamie and Claire, it's part of kind of the blossoming of their relationship. I was like, this is out of place. I honestly thought they wouldn't do it. I thought they just weren't going to do it, and then it showed up in the middle of the episode. It was weird.
And well, that whole thing, I think, felt a little bit like when Jamie was taking the beating for leg hair, earlier. Like it just went on, and I don't know what the thinking was behind that. Did we need to see it that many times? Maybe it was only twice or 3 times, but it felt like we saw it 5 or 6 or 7 different times, and I'm not really sure why. I think people, again, I feel like sometimes they're telling us too much when they just need to trust the fact that we're a smart audience. And we got it.
Also, she even says, like in her little, she's the captioning of her speaking over everything. She says that it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, but I don't remember in the book it going on for weeks. I thought it was something that was like super simple because we know from the time she goes through the stones, well, we know book readers, to the time the major event that's going to happen is 6 weeks. And so she's obviously been at Castle Leoch for a few weeks. And then she's saying that they were going through taverns for weeks upon weeks doing this. So part of me thinks, okay, that's kind of cool that they're making it seem like it's a longer transition of her being there, so it would make a little bit more sense what happens next. But then the book lover part of me is like, oh, this is not really right. This doesn't fit the story.
Yeah. And I'd be okay with it being longer, but it's just that in the sense of that particular episode in that 1 hour, it was redundant.
Yeah, totally. And I also think that the performance by Sam was kind of redundant too. Like, how much more can he do but sit there and look like sad, And I was kind of like, okay, let's let the anger build a little bit in your performance, but really there's nothing else you can do. It's like, crap, I'm in the situation again, And it's not really like, it didn't really go, his performance didn't really go anywhere when all of this was happening, for me at least.
Yeah. So I'm going to disagree. I actually thought the pacing on this episode and just everything moved really smoothly for me. I didn't mind the redundancy of them doing. I think maybe it happened 3, maybe 4 times in the show, but it was quickly cut together. I think it established it kind of established Dougal's kind of control over Jamie, but at the same time, like, it's his family, but you can start to see him like driving that wedge between them and some of the animosity that's there. I agree that where the blow up could have happened earlier and then just see him begrudgingly go along, I think that could have maybe played out a little bit better. But I actually overall I thought it was a really well-paced episode, and I didn't mind Claire's narration as much. I mean, it was still like Outlander for Dummies a couple times, but overall, I really like this episode. So I don't mind if I'm the only one.
Actually, I kind of agree with you a little bit. I felt like as far as filler episodes go and redundancy, well, maybe not redundancy, but more like filler episodes go, last week's was a little bit more fillery for me and for my taste. But I was a little disappointed that we only got to kind of like the calm before the storm. As book readers know, like, this part of the book is kind of where everything starts to kind of fall together and things get more exciting. So I was kind of bummed out that it left on such a cliffhanger, because I'm just so waiting for that next part that we're going to get next week, or I'm hoping next week. So yeah. So
Twitter follower Jamie Lee brings up a good point about Jamie's shirts, and quite how many shirts does he have, and is he just a master seamstress? I mean, at what point is that just like a shirt and rags, or is it like almost like an actor shirt? Like he just doesn't really, so he like loosely stitches it, knowing he's going to be pulled apart.
He does at one point though. He like Dougal goes to rip it off of him, and he like lifts it up willingly. So
sure, it's like oh, this again. It was funny. I was looking at an interview with Graham McTavish, who plays Dougal, and he was saying that when they rehearsed that scene, he had to be very careful because Sam's wearing that prosthetic back apparatus in it, and he had to like look like he was very forcefully ripping the shirt while at the same time not damaging the prosthetic. And apparently it went like really well on rehearsals, and it went like crap on like the performance, and they had to do take after take of, so probably the shirt was in shreds. Like they probably have a million shirts there now that they've gone through.
I did think that his shirt at one point looked really stiff in the back, like he had just mended it so many times that it was just all thread and patches in the back instead of being like full linen. But
yeah, I did like the first look on his face of resignation of, yeah, okay, so I did swear you like my version of the oath, and this is what it means. Like I think it kind of is good that it shows Jamie is a man of his word. He doesn't like the situation that he's in right now, and he's begrudgingly going to do what he has to do right now.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about Jamie, because I think that this episode had one of my favorite scenes, like probably one of the most memorable scenes from the book in general, but which is Jamie kind of protecting her outside of his door. And we had a lot of comments on our blog recap post where people felt like they didn't have very good chemistry in this episode. It seemed to have like kind of lost their sizzle a little bit in that scenes, and I guess in the rest of the scenes with them as well. So talk about that a little bit. What did you guys think?
They weren't as together as much, right? Like not as so much one-on-one. I mean, he came over when he was perpetually talking to her when she was in a really bad mood. I mean, you know, she had, what was it, the emaciated looking rabbit or whatever she didn't want to eat, and he came over, and then like it definitely was not I mean, he clearly still has the hots for her, but I mean, she was just really, you know, still clueless and really PO'd a bunch of the time.
Chandra W. on the Q&A said, can we please talk about the I'm sleeping in front of your door scene? He's precious. So clearly she was feeling like Jamie had this precious mood, but maybe just, I'm wondering, Chandra, did you feel chemistry between them? Because I agree, like it was adorable, but I think I didn't think much about it, but when you said that, Beth, when you said that a lot of people were commenting that chemistry was gone, I did, you know, I thought, okay, yeah. I mean, there definitely have been moments like in recent weeks that we were like, take our breath away, and I don't know that any of us can kind of name a moment this week that we felt that with them.
Yeah, for me, it was more like I looked at it and thought, okay, from Jamie's point of view, this entire trip, he already is in love with Claire, but he has nothing to offer her. He has no, like, reason to think that they would ever be together. And so all he can do is give her, like, some relief, make her life a little bit easier, help guide her a little bit through whatever she's going through. And that's not an easy thing to do, and he has to do it while still distancing himself from her. And so that's just hard. And so he's kind of toned down the whole, like, eye sex thing that he's been doing for the past 4 episodes and has just become kind of this silent guide of her, and I liked it. I didn't think that their sizzle was gone. I think that it was just a little bit more awkward because they were more intimate. They were around each other a lot more, so he had to be more guarded.
Yeah. And just that whole scene too of, you know, obviously the younger kid who's on the road with him, whose name I don't quite remember, like he was saying, okay, they're ribbing him about, you know, oh, you're going on the road the first time and you're a virgin, and those of us who are book readers know a little bit more about that. And I just thought the real awkwardness of him being in front of her door and her going, come right in, just the whole path his face traveled on, come right in, did everything between abject terror, I really want to do this, I really can't do this, will you teach me, and like every emotion in between. I loved it. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's clear, you know, nobody knows exactly what's happening there if you don't know the book, but I think it's clear that he's innocent, and they made that a very clear, cute little thing. Barb B in the Q&A says she's still not loving Sam's hair. Am I alone? And now she doesn't say that that's why there wasn't any chemistry, but maybe. And I mean, honestly, I thought his hair was horrific in this episode, so I'm going to say maybe I was just a little bit like, ew.
I liked this scene a lot. I thought that it was a good reminder of how young and how innocent Jamie is. And you're right. I loved his facial expression. Just like my favorite part of the whole show probably was his facial expression when she says, "Let me go get my blanket off my bed at least," and just his eyes go like really wide, and he like darts him around like, what am I doing right now? I just love that part. And also I think like we got to remember, you know, he is young, and I think Sam's doing a really good job of, because how old Sam, like 34, 35 or something like that. He's doing a really good job of playing a younger character, you know, and we're all probably in our 30s, most of us probably, and so we have to remember what it was like to be 24 and for a guy, you know, and like be crushing on this woman who is a lot more experienced than you are. So I loved the scene. I thought it was great.
Aw. I have some Jamie feels right now. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, just wait. Just wait. Next week, the week after, we're so like, this is gonna be so exciting.
You know
I'm
what?
already excited how next week is ending. Like in my mind, I have the perfect ending spot for next week's episode. I'm not gonna say what it is, but if it happens, I'm gonna put it in an envelope.
Okay. Do it.
I'll let you guys open it if it happens.
You should write a blog post that we're not going to let you change. We'll schedule it for like immediately after, and it'll be embarrassing if you're completely wrong. We're going to embarrass you and tar and feather you.
So now that we're talking about it, we're getting this close to episode 7, which is entitled The Wedding. So I don't think that that's really a spoiler. You don't really know what's happening, but that's the episode 7. But this next episode is called The Garrison Commander. How do you think that this major cliffhanger is going to end? What is Claire going to say? And how are we going to get her into that room with Blackjack?
So what is, I haven't watched any previews, so I'm going to kind of approach this as somebody, I obviously know what happens, but I don't remember how she answers in the book. I literally don't. I think I have a guess, but I don't really actually remember. So what has been seen, and this is great because Megan H. just asked this question. So we're answering your question, Megan, about the cliffhanger. So what has been shown for next week yet? What has come out?
I'm a total blank, too. I don't think they said, like, you don't get to see what the transition is. You just know she's there in the garrison.
Okay.
You have no idea how she got between where she is with Dougal and the garrison.
So they're not telling us anything, but we know she's there.
And I have to tell you, I can't remember this scene in the book at all. I probably read this like in October of last year. So to me, it's too long ago. I don't remember that specific scene at all.
Beth has her hand up.
It's not in the
remember.
Aha, that would be why I don't remember it.
It's not in the book.
Oh.
In the book, Dougal just takes her to see Blackjack. It's been part of his plan all along. This scene with the lieutenant is not in the book.
Okay.
Okay, that makes
That's
sense.
what I thought too. Because I just skimmed it before, a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I feel like they averted a situation that could have gone like this down the road by doing something else. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know how spoilery we can be on here, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
Let's see a little bit for what. But I think, and that makes sense in the show because I do think they're letting us like Dougal a little bit more than we probably did in the book. So that would make sense. And maybe it's totally going to change. Maybe the first thing he's going to do is hand her over the first 5 minutes of this next episode.
The funny thing is, Becca, is that I thought the exact opposite as you. I didn't like Dougal as much in the show as I liked him in the book.
Really?
I thought that I think that it was more like he was like a non-entity to me a lot of the times in the book. Like I just was like, oh, he's there, and I don't really have much of opinion on him. But then when he, Graham McTavish, now that he's like bringing him to life, it gives me an opinion on Dougal now. And so I really feel like, man, at the start of this episode, I thought, man, I don't like Dougal at all, and I didn't think that I was going to dislike him so much. But then now, at the end of this last episode, I was like, oh, yeah, that's why she went through all the politics and stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I didn't not hate him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understood him better in the book than because things are spelled out for you more. But in the show, I'm like, is he a villain? Like, I read the book 3 times. I was like, I read the book 3 times, and I was still trying to determine, is Dougal really a villain? And I know what happens, Yeah. But in the book, I feel like maybe his priorities justify his actions. And here, I don't feel that yet. Just watching the show, you, as a viewer, if you have never watched the thing, you might not think, oh, this, he's the dick because of this reason, So.
Diane RC on the Q&A has 2 comments. One of them is that she loved the cliffhanger. Cliffhanger, it was a nice switch. And then the second was that she also likes book Dougal more than show Dougal. So
interesting.
Real quick, flipping to Twitter, I just wanted to call out Jan W. Toby, who mentioned this the other night about how they left off Jamie's best line. I wanted to see Jamie joke with Claire.
Yes, Jamie's best line. Everybody remember what that is?
What are
No.
we? Oh, no, not what are we?
It's outside the door, and he's Jamie. Do you know what it is?
Jamie,
Well, I remember the tweet from last week, but go ahead, Beth.
No, you got. Oh, well, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
No, he says when she says when they're outside the door, and she says, well, what would they say if they came up here and they found you or whatever? And he says they would just think I'm waiting my turn.
Oh,
Which is
that's
a
so
great
sweet.
line.
It is a great line. It would have given him a little flirty opportunity.
Right.
So it's a shame that they
Yeah.
didn't use that.
Well, and they kind of gave it away instead to sort of Claire, in a sense, where after I did really like the scene where the guys all go do battle. It was like what I would call good old New York City street justice. We can talk smack about, the people in our family, but don't let anybody else talk smack about the people in our family, And then once Claire realizes they all did battle for her, and she makes the really kind of bawdy joke to be sort of like one of the family and one of the guys, I felt like, some of that was happening there. So I think some of that humor went to that scene instead.
And then another great Twitter comment is from OL Fan in Japan. She says, Claire is gonna say, yeah, I'm here on my own, free will, and I will prove it to you by showing you that Dougal will let me go. So that's kind of like a smart way to kind of not get on anybody's bad side, but then to kind of try and get her freedom, which won't work. But.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I feel like she might think the devil I know is safer than the devil I don't at this point, because now she's really seen what the British Army is capable of.
Right.
And, like, how do you choose? Like, is your choice a better choice?
Well, can we talk about that? Because, Beth, I think you had a really good question, and that was, how did those villagers not know there was a red coat living amongst them? Did we miss something, or was it just kind of like, hey, surprise, I have a red coat in that shed over there?
He literally was like in the door, putting on a coat in the open. It was like, hello.
Well, I do have an answer to this question. It's not. He's actually like. You're right. In the show, it looks totally like he's just been there for weeks, and they're like, "Oh, some British guy." But I think he his horse through his shoe, so he's just in.
How do you know this?
Because I know things. And so he's in there shoeing his horse, and he comes out, and then he's off. I think the scene just wasn't built out enough where you can see his horse is there, and he's just fixing his horse, and he's off. It's like if he stopped to have his car towed, basically, is what's happening.
Right. And Claire's British accent stands out amongst where he is, so that gets his attention.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, it was a valid question, but I think
Outlander dork of the day over here.
Right. I just assumed he was undercover. I mean, and then I think they all assumed that maybe his mother or father was British or something, and he was just, I don't know, picked up the dialect. That is kind of weird, though, that no one said anything in the village. It's like stranger in the midst.
So let's talk about we haven't talked anything about Ned Gowan.
Oh, yeah. What the hell's wrong with us? We forgot to talk about Ned Gowan.
And so good in this episode. He's he took one of my favorite characters. I love Ned Gowan in the book because he's just this little, adventuring old dude. And I loved him. I loved the fact that he was smart and that he was playing Claire a little bit and playing Claire off of Dougal. And I really, really liked him in this episode.
I did too. He's a great character actor. He's done tons of BBC costume drama, and he was so good. I really enjoyed him in that. He was just so cute and dorky. I just really liked him. Scottish dorky. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was good to have a little connection there, and that kind of foreshadows some things that maybe coming in the future.
I meant to say this about the British guy. That was probably the only time I can think of that Claire didn't know what was going on. I kept thinking back, because I've been waiting to see some of Jamie's point of view, or Myrta's point of view, or Dougal's in the show, because we don't get that in the book. And so I'm aware of that when I'm on my third watch or so. And I think that the red coat in the putting his coat on was the first time it wasn't Claire's point of view in the show.
I think you're right.
Why was she not the one watching it?
She didn't see that happen.
Oh. So what is the, I've learned now that Ron mentioned the horse thing in his podcast. That's how Beth, you probably knew it. Somebody mentioned that in the Q&A.
That's not how I knew that, but okay.
Oh, you didn't? Ron apparently mentioned it.
What?
Whoops, we lost
Uh-oh, Becca's gone.
Becca.
Sorry, guys.
I'll
Oh,
see
there
if I can
she's
see who's
back.
in the.
There she is.
Comcast. Woo! I was going to say, has anybody mentioned that yet? I mean, is that a mistake? Is that just like we might see that more often? Because I would love to see that more often. I don't need to see everything out of Claire's perspective.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I've been waiting for it.
Yeah. So nobody, as far as you know, nobody's mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I interviewed Diana at Comic-Con, I actually did specifically ask that question because I feel like for a lot of books that are first-person books, one of the great things was when they go to TV or movie, you get that expanded perspective. And I did actually ask the question of her, what's your favorite scene that is not from a Claire POV? And she said, oh, no, we are all at Claire's POV. And then she said, well, you get the alternative perspective by who the camera is then on in that scene. And I thought, oh, and I was a little disappointed. Like, I was really kind of hoping we'd see, like, Colin and Dougal having a side conversation or Jamie interacting with Murtaugh. Like, I kind of missed that. I would like to see a little more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that maybe the feeling is that it takes some of the tension away to see what's happening behind the scenes. But in this case, we saw a little something happening behind the scenes, and it heightened the tension. So
Right.
Bring it on. I mean, put more of that in there so that we get a good idea of what's going on outside of Claire's purview.
Right.
Diane said that was also mentioned in the podcast about Claire's point of view.
Yeah, really? I did not listen to the podcast, but now I don't need to. So that works out really great.
That going back to Ned, Tara DeSario said Ned was perfect and perfectly cast. So a lot of agreement there on our pal Ned.
Awesome. Oops, I'm deleting my. Sorry. I just
So-
deleted my. I just deleted my doc that had all my questions in it. Free time.
Well, while we do that, I was going to say on Twitter we have lots of great conversation going. So just wanted to talk about Anne. Hold on.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Popping up everywhere.
Anne.
So Anne Warnick, she says, my non-book reading friends don't think Jamie is attractive. Do we just think he's attractive because we know Jamie? And I will say that Sam is very attractive, but I will say they do a good job of kind of shaking it up, like so you don't think it's automatic that this is their story if you haven't read ahead. And I think in the book it does that too. Like Becca, you've said when you read it, you didn't realize it was about them until it kind of happened.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, and it's a good perspective. I love hearing that non-book reader perspective, and I think nobody can deny that last week in that Jesu Pri scene that he just like says the line, and you know the moment. Even your non-book friends, Anne, had to have been like, oh, this guy. So I think we're gonna have more moments of that coming out in the future because I think that's kind of how the book goes. I think he's just a guy, and she's like a friend to him, and they have this connection, but I don't think it's much more beyond that.
I would also say, too, just on a physical level of attractiveness, I think a lot of the scenes that we've seen so far were shot all in, like, the winterish and early spring of last year. Weren't these, like, mostly shot, like, March and April and everything? So I'm picturing what Sam looked like in mid-July when I saw him and how long his hair was at that point. I'm pretty sure at this point we were talking the first run at the dye job, some dodgy hair extensions that were permed and put in there. But, I mean, he was pretty hot on the carpet. And like I said, I'm not normally somebody who's attracted to redheads, and I know there's a certain amount of irony in that statement. But, you know, I thought he was pretty hot on the carpet. It was working for me. That's what I can say.
You know what's so funny is I think when we were on the carpet together, Laura, for Hypable, I think I turned to you and I was like, wait, that's Jamie? Because I was not impressed by Sam Hugan when I first heard he was cast, and I think because I built up this Jamie Fraser in my head from having read the book. So that's just kind of a little bit more of an unpopular opinion, most likely from somebody who went from like book and then watched the TV show. I didn't think he was that cute until I saw him in person. And then the character in the TV show I think really makes him more attractive, as like book readers will know, and people even that are watching are kind of slowly falling in love with him like Claire is. So
yeah, I think it works.
Yeah. And I mean, too, no one looks good all of the time. I mean, he looks good when I've needed him to look good, like the Je suis puissant, like scene. He looks great, and sometimes he doesn't, but that's okay.
Yeah, and if there's going to be any sort of sexual scenes with him, a big if in the future, and he's got hobbit hair, like leaning over a woman, I may have some letters to write, letters to the editor to write.
Am I the only person that it doesn't mind the hair? Like, I actually think it's kind of cute. It's like a little moppety kind of hair. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's nice. I can see it now. Like, I think what you guys said, like seeing him in like the summer and the promo shots and stuff, I think the length it makes him look older, which is going to help. Because I think right now they're trying to make him look younger because he's playing. Have they made it? We don't know how old he is. He hasn't said, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to, I mean, book-wise, he's supposed to be 22 and she's 27 at this point, right, is what it's supposed to be.
They haven't actually said that. Yeah, that's about how old they are, yeah.
Whatever.
I don't mind the hair that much right now. I mean, there's certain scenes where it's definitely hobbity, but I don't mind it, and I don't mind the longer hair either. I know... Personally, Becca's really looking forward to when it's braided back.
Well, obviously, we're going to have some new things Instagram with the hashtag Instabraid. Styles for Jamie to trial me, Jamie on the weekends. Somebody, Bethany which is OL fan in Japan, said apparently his butt is going to be attractive, though, according to Diana. Of course, Diana said that. She was very impressed.
I don't take Diana's word for anything.
I would say I believe Diana's exact phrase was the wobbly bits worked, and I remember thinking, "Oh my god!" So. Wobbly bits.
That sounds like Bridget Jones' Diary.
It really does, but it was something about wobbly bits.
Yeah. Wobbly bits.
Hey, don't you think that it's all very different? Like sex scenes in a television show, I don't need them to be very explicit. I mean, when you're reading, it's a personal experience. It's just you and the book. But a television show, that's everybody. That's a lot of folks. And I just feel like I just don't need it to be really, really explicit.
No,
Whereas I like my books very explicit.
Lots of details. I think better on, like, when you're seeing something, it's more like the build-up and, like, the connection. But, like, once the clothes come off and, like, the actual thrustings happen, that can be real quick. If not, we don't need to see it at all. But, like, the actual, like, connection and the making out and, like, the throwing against the wall, like, all that build-up, I think I'll take all day long.
Yeah, right. It's the foreplay, totally. Well, it also kind of reminds me of that scene on Friends. I don't know if you guys were fans of that show, when Ross and Rachel realized they accidentally had the video recorder going when they had sex, and at first they're going, "Oh yeah, I had a tan," and "Oh, you were kind of hot," and then they're like, and they had to turn it off. It's like, and I think you're absolutely right, Becca. I think it's exactly like that.
Our Twitter and commenter friend Heidi is asking a special request. Heidi Rochelle is saying, Beth, can you do "He Has a Nice Butt" in Diana's voice? She's asking for an awkward friend.
I'm already hot. I think she said.
No pressure.
I think her actual words were, "You have one fine ass man." They did not hate me, Diana. I'm sorry. They're making
She does an amazing Diana.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed already. Frank was in this episode, you guys. Frank. We haven't talked about it. How much do I love him?
I mean, I love him, but I forget.
Here's what I love about Tobias Menzies playing Frank. You do not ever anticipate when you're reading the books that Frank is like he is kind of lecherous in the books, but you don't think that he's like sensual really, or I didn't. And every single time Claire is on, like in his eyesight line in the show, Tobias is looking her up and down like she is a piece of meat, man. He is just totally perusing all of her goods every single time he's on screen. I love it. I love it so much. It's so adorable.
I still want Baby Roger.
Me too.
You'll get him. He's going to be in it.
okay? I just need Baby Roger on one of these flashback scenes to like, I don't know, to drool on Claire or just something. I just want Baby Roger, like just one little glimmer of Baby Roger.
I don't remember Frank in this episode, and I feel really bad about it.
He comes in and they talk about the Jacobite Rising, and she's wearing that really cute sweater vest.
Okay.
And they're all on Culloden battlefield and everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right. I'm really glad that they showed that, because I think it puts in perspective I was thinking about it, about how you can visit that and how, like, emotional that is. I mean, I didn't know much about the Scottish history until I read this book, and I really kind of, I didn't do a lot of research. I went to Wikipedia a couple times, and I feel like I'm really glad that they did that, and I hope that people are more interested in this history, because it isn't something that I remember learning, I guess, unless you take like a really advanced, European history class. I don't remember learning that in our average, just everyday American history. I mean, not American history, but U.S. history classes.
Yeah, world history or whatever. Yeah. Well, even the whole like Jacobite thing, they do the whole like explanation, Jacobite coming from the Latin or whatever that was, and I was like, oh, that's where it came from. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I don't think they do that in the book, and it was kind of like the little mini history lesson there, which was, I thought, pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's necessary. I mean, it's necessary for Claire to have that moment where she's like, holy shit, these guys are going to die in a couple years.
Yeah.
And to be like kind of cursed with that knowledge at a point in her story where she's still planning to leave them. So it's kind of like she's doing everything she can to say, you guys got to quit this. I mean, she flat out tells Ned, this is never going to happen. You got to quit. Because she could have one more day with them. And I guess she's just doing everything she can to give them as much forewarning as she possibly can.
Yeah, and that was frustrating a little bit, because you're like, you need to figure out a way to communicate this better. Like, I don't know what you got to do, but they got to, like, I mean, that I felt much more urgently than I did reading the book. Like, no, figure it out, girl. I know they're going to think you're crazy, that you know what's going to happen in the future, but figure your shit out and communicate better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I guess she can't tell them without telling them who she is.
Right, I know. I understand. I was mad. Got mad.
See, I was more worried about, you need to stop because they're going to think you're a spy. And I was just like, cut it. Stop talking.
Yeah.
I mean,
or it's just like,
how
they're
would
not
she
going to
know? Like, yeah, exactly.
Jamie Lee 2009 on Twitter just said, the show makes me feel so much more for Frank. Wait, maybe that's just Tobias Menzies being his sexy self. And number one, I do think that we have a point. We all love Tobias. But no, I think the show has done a better job than the book did. And I don't think that, I just think the book didn't, I think that was the point. I think we should have felt more for Frank reading the book. And I think some people did. But I also think as you read more and more, you're just like, forget it. We forget that she loved Frank.
We read this a couple months ago. I forced my book club, my real life book club, to read it, and it's interesting because there's probably 12 women, and they all hated the book. Every single one of them hated it.
Wow.
And the number one reason why they didn't like it was because of how quickly she forgot about Frank.
Yeah.
So it's funny, he connected with them at least, or at least the situation connected with them.
Well, and that is the big, people who don't like the book, what I've read online and like what I knew about going into reading it, that is a big complaint. Like, she just gets over her husband this quickly and chooses this other guy. And I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that that's really what she did. I never felt like that was the choice she was making. I know some people can argue that she did. But I also probably was more like, forget about him. I never felt a connection in the book to him.
I actually always kind of wondered if it has to do with the age of the reader, because I read this book fairly young. I think I was about maybe 18 or something when I picked it up. So obviously I'm not thinking about like, oh, she has a husband back home. I'm just like, dude, there's this hot young guy over here, like get on that, because why wouldn't you? Which sounds terrible. It makes me sound so vapid. But, if it's a younger reader, I mean, how many times do we see even ourselves get swept up in the magic of,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Somebody new and alluring, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, too, if you're a book reader, Claire gets very quickly, like, dickmatized by Jamie. Like, literally, I've never seen a character get more dickmatized faster. That she's, like, all of her emotional responses to Jamie, or to anything, eventually will be, but what about Jamie's dick and me? Like, that's all it's going to be about in a couple of episodes. Like, the whole second half of the season is Claire's just going to be like, but your dick, right? But your dick and me? Like, that's happening next. So that's kind of the problem, I think, if you're into Frank. You're like, dude, he can't be that good. Like, it's just like, wait a minute. So that's how I felt, at least. I was like, where is her husband again? It never even occurred to me to think twice about Frank when I was reading the book for the first time.
Dickmatize. Hashtag.
Hashtag Jamie's dick. All right, we're closing in on an hour. Is there anything anybody just needed to speak about? Do we have any good questions or anything coming up on Twitter? Because we're about to do GIF moments. So, in fact, let's do our GIF moment, and then you guys that are watching the tweets, y'all let us know if we need to go back and talk about anything that we didn't talk about. Anybody have one with your GIF moment from this episode? What do you need in your GIF folder?
We gifted. We gift mine. I mean, I did it the other day. It was the drunken ladies around the table, and her I mean, I loved it. That's why I chose to gift it.
Mm-hmm.
Mine would be Sam's face as she says, "Come inside my room," like that. Just and he needs like a little thought bubble over his head. Like that was what the gift would be.
I really liked the scene. Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I really liked when she was just like, oh, it'll only take a century or two for women to be able to be lawyers. I really liked that. Yeah. I thought it was really great. It was a fun little comeback under her breath, and it was just a great little scene between her and Ned. So,
my giftable moment would probably be Claire dropping trowel or dress over the bucket, and then her getting like walked in on as she's peeing. That was pretty fantastic.
Speaking of that, I have a story. I'm going to tell it really quickly. One time I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I was going to the bathroom at this Chinese... What? I was going to the bathroom at this Chinese place called Chang's house, and my friend Steven was supposed to be standing in front of the door because he said that the lights to the bathroom were out. So we had the door propped open so that I could go to the bathroom. I'm hovering. I was 8.5 months pregnant. And all of a sudden, my friend Steven isn't there. The guy who owns the place, Chang, comes in, turns the lights on, looks at me, and turns the light on. The light was working the whole time. And saw me hovering over the toilet with a big pregnant belly. I have not been back to Chang's house since then. That was 10.5 years ago.
Steven's a dick. I hope you're not friends with him anymore.
Oh, I was really mad at him. Really mad.
Oh, man. Giftable moment.
Probably Shifty-Eye Jamie at the door, or Claire Pop in the squat. Those two are my favorites.
I have two. Becca, do you have any?
I did mine. Thanks for remembering, Beat.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have two.
Drunks.
There's one where Angus, mine are always Angus. When Angus is talking to the lieutenant, but he doesn't know he's a lieutenant, he tells him to go and, like, suck on his mama's tit. And he goes... with his finger. It was so cute. I like that one. And then when Claire tells her joke, and she's at the horse, and she's in the middle of her joke, and Jamie's head comes around the horse like this. Like, really I love it so much. I want it in slow motion. It's just like, I love it.
I'll do it. I'll work on that tomorrow instead of working on work.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about last week. We did a giveaway of a signed copy of Moby plus a Pocket Jamie, and we picked our winner this week, and that is Natasha, who goes on the Twitter. She's on the Twitters as Tashopolis. Tashopolis? Is that right? She actually is a writer. I know who she is. She's a writer for Page to Premiere. She's friends with our friend Kimmy, and I totally recognize her, and I was excited that the random generator generated somebody we know. So congratulations, Natasha, on your book. We will email you details on how to get that. You have to come to my house in Philadelphia. And the other thing is, for this week, we're doing another giveaway. We are going to be giving away, you know that the Outlander store, the official store, has some fun things, and they have a shirt that says, "Put a kilt on it." I will show you a picture, but I don't actually have it up. So we're giving away a Put a Kilt on It shirt. So we will put details in the comments of this video below on how to win that. It's going to be basically the same as last week. Share this video, whatever. You get entries every time you do. And hopefully luck will be on your side.
Luck be a lady tonight.
Yep.
You guys, if you want a fun little after talking Outlander practice, go to the beginning of the video and then the end of the video and see how much drunker I am. Because this was full when we started. It's about to be
yeah. Just wait for a little bit. There's an Instagram video coming on the Nats Normal account real soon about what I was doing before this video started.
awesome. All right, you guys, I think that's it. That's it for the rent. We're really excited about next week.
So excited!
The Garrison Commander.
Right.
It's all Tobias all the time.
Oh, speaking of that, we actually have already scheduled in advance our chat for next week. We're doing next week on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be doing this live chat because it's an important episode and we want you guys to be there. So we'll send out links this week so you can prep, get babysitters, and all the stuff you need to do so that you can be there with us.
Maybe we can do a random chat and try and work Q&A for people to test it out, since it seems there's still a few hiccups still. We'll work it out.
We'll work it out. We'll work all this shiz out. Good. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah, thanks, ladies.
Thanks.
Good to see you this time.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Thanks for introducing Outlander to Lara.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad she liked it. Like I said, I would have just had like all the minus brownie points if she had hated it. It's such a long book too.
I know.
She'd be like, God, Pam, you're so stupid. Why would you tell me to read this?
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you on Sunday at 2 p.m. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.